time warp. 2020 we start, as discussed many times, with Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto meeting at the end of Capricorn throughout 2020. This is a one-year phase I call the astrological eye of the needle. Begins now, 11 January, with this once in a very rare timeline Saturn-Pluto alignment, touching upon all the structures, institutions, the rule of law. And over the year 2020, there are several other new synodic cycles starting, old ones ending. Too many to list, but it's more important to see what's going on around the world. There are 25 places all over the continents with what we have discussed: civil war, anarchy, riots, revolts, where constitutions are put in question. July 2020, there's a Jupiter-Pluto passage. And then 2nd November, finally, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. That's exactly at the time of the election in the United States of America, right within the same 24 hours. So, astrology evolves as we discover, of course, new planets, new dwarfs, asteroids, and also the extraterrestrial technology that follows with that knowing. And so there's also parallel on the planet Earth, mankind evolve, mirroring cosmos. It's very interesting when we talk about seeing the future, discussing these technologies, looking glass, etc. Leonardo da Vinci, he used layers and layers and layers of drawings which were hidden behind his famous paintings to show future dimensions and realities. The next really important alignment we need to see right now. So the equinox, March 2020, that's a very important moment where Mars also joins the group of Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. That's like the grand board meeting. So this is not theory. Astrology is really the map. As we go through slow-moving societal changes that touch upon the structures, the institutions, and then the system and system management in 2021, when Jupiter and Saturn move together into Aquarius. Now, let's talk about the looking glass technology, the famous technology supposedly seeing the future and into 2020-24, the Arctic developments. So my theory is simply that if I was able, and others were also able to foresee in 2015 that Trump would become president, then I assume that the deep state technology people who have such technologies would also have known. So having known what they knew was going to happen, they ran out of options. So first they started to block what they saw going to happen. That didn't work. And when that point was reached in January 2017, they switched into a coup d'etat mode. So these paranormal force fields where for millennia ruling classes have looked into some kind of paranormal entities for guidance or divination purposes. There's a whole history of that literature, going from Alexander, Genghis Khan, Napoleon, Hitler, you name it. All these people were in touch with some kind of interdimensional or really paranormal entity or frequency with an energy field that would actually misguide them. Again, there's a whole history of this where they're being told, we're going to win this, we'll be the big winners. They're being told, yeah, you're the greatest emperor from so and so. But eventually all of them fail and lose. You think about what John A. Keel said about dealing with this alien extraterrestrial world. So, what happened now and what is going to happen, as I explained, is the eye of the needle. It takes about 1 year due to the planetary alignments. And I look around as a European into this American situation, which to some degree I predicted, but I mean, even I am stunned. For instance, Glenn Beck, he knows the context of everything. He talked to Giuliani, and Giuliani basically stopped the whole show. Trump was just a man who walked into the room, into the situation. And I told you, I've met him. When he walks into a place, things change around him. That's just the way it goes. That's an energetic phenomenon that they all know about. So they decided to spy on him already 8 years before he even announced his run. And from that moment on, there was his whole illegal surveillance apparatus that covered everybody, by the way, covered all the Congress, every single person in Congress and the senators and everything around that. So then when that step also failed, this is when already Saturn started moving into line of Pluto. Müller then used this mandate he was given to wipe out the evidence. This is all according to Giuliani, okay? You have to look at what Giuliani says in clear text. Essentially, he has uncovered the way deep state, particularly the United States State Department works. Barr went all over the world, the Attorney General, and he interviewed a ton of people. And Durham, he will share what is proven. Key people, meanwhile, have disappeared, and the thing gets covered up. This is a process that's taken like 4 years, basically. And in 2020, Saturn, moving into line of Pluto, then accompanied by Jupiter. This is like when you have the second hand, the minute hand, and the hour hand coming all together at one point. This is the ending of a cycle, obviously, astrologically, and the beginning of something new. So I said, astrology is very, very old, maybe as old as Atlantis, but we have currently documents at least 4,000 years old. And the guidance that these deep state type elites use is destructive and deceptive and leads to a dead end. But this is deliberate. This is where you need to remember what I spoke to you about John A. Keel and this vague, opaque, paranormal field that they're dealing with. They are foretold they will win, but they never win. So the lesson is, our inferior reality, this physical matter, 3D, is superimposed on a superior astral matter. This astral matter reality is what we measure by astrology. So the planets moving over the stars are the map of this astral reality. In other words, the astrology is the map. Atlantis knew how to access this, come and go, and disappear from 3D and re-establish in another dimension. We know this from archaeology. Atlantis still exists. One thing I need to talk about briefly, as to predicting the next years, has to do with the 3-star Air Force General Quast. He's retired now. He has begun to speak out in colleges, universities, about his career, and he was basically the Air Force guru, the guy who would select from 200,000 pilots 3,000 for 1 year. So he knows the club inside out. He said he has, during 3 decades, worked with, been in contact with scientists and engineers in all sorts of compartmentalized operations. And he used one example to illustrate what they're actually working on. He said they're really way ahead. They're working on transport technologies that could take a person from one side of the planet to the other in under 1 hour. In under 1 hour. So when you measure the speeds, there is nothing, I think, other than anti-gravity that could produce that. So this 3-star general, retired from the Air Force, said that's the things they're working on, and he even saw it in a positive context to say this is the technology for the future of mankind. He was then retired because precisely he was not supposed to talk about this. this is the theme for 2020 and 21. The next 2 years are highly technological in our potential. Discussing the paranormal realities and really going through the mirrors of perception by being in contact with another frequency. This is difficult business that people don't understand what it entails. If you know, when Gandalf explains to Aragorn, it's better not you looking into this thing because it's going to affect you, your thinking, and later you'll be in touch with it again because it stays in touch. That's how he describes it in Lord of the Rings. And the same goes for many seers who have been in touch, deep state, many of them, remote seers, and you name them, in touch with great technology. It's essentially great they're in touch with, mentally speaking, and this is where they're getting these ideas from, that if they produce more wars, they're going to win and dominate the planet. Of course, it's all ridiculous. I mean, Kissinger said now, 2020, we're out of that game. There is no world dominance, but competition goes on forever.